not a typical measurement of success. But that's also why you shouldn't use someone's financial situation as a measurement of success. I've met a lot of really, really amazing people who have very little money. And then I've also met some really amazing people who have a lot of money as well. The common denominator is not the money that they have, but the character that they have. And it's the exact same thing when I meet someone who's really poor and has a horrible character, horrible attributes, and etc. But then I meet someone who's extremely wealthy and they have the same attributes or character as that really poor person. So I'd say it's not a good measurement.
Good luck to my ancestors.
Hope they're well.
Hope they're well.
Great little caviar.
Very good caviar.
Alrighty, guys. Well, welcome to this episode of the SCULPTED podcast. I have not done an episode like this in a long, long time. A fully solo episode. Actually, maybe I have done it in a while. I think maybe 8 episodes ago. I don't know. We're a lot of episodes deep. But this episode, as you can tell, by myself, and the boys aren't here. So we'll be doing a few more episodes like this where it's just me keeping the ship afloat for the time being. We are all pretty preoccupied. Each person in the podcast right now is really, really packed, including myself. Arguably myself the most packed. They probably won't appreciate me saying that, actually, so I retract that for the sake of the team members. But anyways, we're all pretty busy. It's easiest for me to continue doing things by myself where I am, so we'll continue doing so. But regardless, this episode got a few topics. One of the first things is talking about measurement of success. That's an interesting one that I've been thinking about a lot recently as things have really been going well for me. Then there's another topic as well, and it's an interesting one. I think that it would be a good thing to talk about. I've spoken about it before as well, and it's talking about solitude. I personally really like being in solitude, and I think there's a lot of benefits for it. I think that there could also be a lot of negatives of it, but I'll talk about that a little bit more as well. But really, just to catch anyone up on anything that you may have missed if you haven't listened to any of the previous episodes in recent weeks. I think we're up to maybe 178, maybe episode 178. Yeah, it's pretty hectic. That's a long time. That's actually a long time. Wow. Can't even believe we've done that many episodes. But regardless, where are we? So, SCULPTED app, tracking along well. Finally got the right people on board. It has taken me so long. I've had to pay a high ignorance debt for understanding technology, although I can tell you now that ignorance debt, putting myself in the deep end and really forcing myself to learn, has actually bared more fruit than just the SCULPTED app itself. It's really turned me into a tech bro, and into a tech bro who knows what he's now doing. That goes into UI UX, it goes into product development, it goes into product management, everything like that. The next thing is really for me to start coding, which I had tried a little bit, although I will not code. I kind of refuse to, because that way I know for a fact that I will just be spending so much time doing and not managing the work. So yeah, that's why I won't code. But design, product development, etc., etc. I think as a CEO, should also always have the capacity to do this. So it's good for me to learn the right way and always be on the product itself, because that's the most important thing. But regardless, SCULPTED app is chugging along well. I am hoping that I will be moving to Sydney very soon. Once we move to Sydney, we will be getting 2 businesses running up consistently, which first one would obviously be the podcast, and then the second one, we're going to be running a podcast agency as well. So that's going to be really cool. Charles, our producer, he's going to be running that with myself. I'm going to be putting in some capital into running that, quite a bit of capital actually, and then obviously paying for studio, apartment, etc. It's a pretty big first move for everything, but that will obviously help us create a better podcast in terms of the SCULPTED podcast, and then of course really help others as well in Sydney. So really cool situation there, and very happy with how that is. Hoping to move to Sydney really, really soon, quite honestly, really soon. It's a bit difficult. It's really important actually for me to move to Sydney, in my opinion. I would say that I have small town mindset, and I need to do my best to get out of it. I would say that it was unknown to me that I actually had it, and only in really recent months did I actually even realize that I had small town mentality, to where it's like, I mean, I wouldn't say I overtly had it. I think that it was something that I just grew up in and I didn't question it. And now I've started to realize, oh, this is like really small town mentality. It's an interesting like framework, because it's typically something that's like not your choice, if that makes sense. And I say that with the most nuanced perspective as possible. I say that it's not your choice because it's typically something that you're like brought up in. It's like you'll always be knocked down for trying something more. There's many examples in my life which I can speak about in a few years' time, which will be funny to look back on. But it's like me trying to do more than everyone else, I will be cut down for. We speak about it a lot with Paul, no, tall poppy syndrome, and I think that that's just something that I've learned, is that this will always happen to me, whatever I try and do, and I can't really let the opinions, the direction, or anything of that matter, to which is contrary to where I want to go and to where I believe I can go, affect any action that I take. And I think that I've done a pretty good job to do so already. And I think that it's a pretty big part of the direction that I am going right now, is really continuing not to care. And actually, I say it's not to care. I actually don't think that people who say that they don't care about what others people have to say, it's it's a little bit of a self-soother, if that makes sense. Because the fact is that you should care about what anyone has to say, although you just don't let it affect you. And you should actually just take that on board as that's what someone says. Because if you don't care, and you always say that you don't care, I don't care, I don't care, like you're essentially just masking it. Like you're not actually taking it on board, because it's not that they are wrong. It's just that it's something that doesn't help you. And if you have so much self confidence from within you to acknowledge it and be like, you know what, I kind of understand where you come from, because what I'm doing is pretty different to everyone else. So I don't blame you for it, but I also back myself to do it. And that's exactly why you're the one who's telling me that I can't, and it's exactly why I'm the type of person to believe that I can. And I think that actually, like, canceling out the noise or whatever is actually not the right coping mechanism. I've got to the point where anyone who says anything poor about me or whatever that looks like, any it's literally as close as inside of my family. Like realistically, I'm not kidding. It's there. I just know that that has nothing to do with me, because I truly do believe in myself, and it's not a false sense of belief. It's a very earned self belief. And when that comes from as close as your family, then you could also have that from as far out of your family, and it doesn't really affect you. And it's not that I don't care; it's I don't believe it. And I've just got such high level of self confidence, with, I would like to imagine, a high level of self awareness. I've said that many times, that the more you claim to be self aware, the less self aware you are. So I won't claim to be self aware, but I would like to imagine I have that level of self awareness that helps me navigate these things. So that really helps dissect and also understand different opinions, and just see them as that. It's a different opinion. I mean, I have many different opinions to many people. This just happens to be that I'm at the expense. And if I'm at the expense, it's no issue to me. I think that being at the expense of something, whether it's a joke, whether it's whatever, I don't have a massive issue with. And the I just realized that does sound a little bit crazy if you take that to the extreme. Like being with nuance, being at the expense of something, if it only if it only alters your mental state. So if someone's like making fun of you, or if someone is putting you in a disadvantaged state that is not like extremely crazy, then it really shouldn't bother you too much. And it doesn't bother me that much, because again, like it's not caring. It's actually just being so confident within yourself that it doesn't matter what they say, because they just don't know you well enough. And I think that that's a very common thing, is if someone takes criticism as something to where it inhibits action, or it makes them feel insecure, it typically would reflect that that person isn't confident within themselves. And I say that as well, like, it's not to say I'm the most confident person within myself in the world, but I do know myself very well. And I think that that's fair to say. I think that saying that I know myself very well helps me have more confidence. Now, again, it's not to say I'm the most confident. I wouldn't necessarily be the most egotistical, but I would be I'd be confident in saying that I'm confident in myself and my capabilities, which comes from a lot of work. It's earned, as I mentioned before. It's a lot of reflection. It's a lot of learning. It's a lot of doing, and then testing. Here and there, I'll test my capacity to learn a new skill and see if I can actually become good at it. Whether it's video editing, whether it's graphic design, whether it's UI UX design, whether it's understanding technology, like I mentioned with coding before. There was a time where I was like, I have not played the piano in maybe like 7 to 8 years. I'm like, wonder how I'd go with that. Taught myself it pretty quickly again. I'm like, cool, okay, now I can play a song. Let's move on to the next thing. And it's just getting these small pieces of proof to really reinstate that narrative. Now, Jack, if he was to hear me say that, he'd laugh. But I also do think that Jack just finds it funny because he knows that's just me. And it is actually the right thing to do. I think he would also agree that it's the right thing to do. But it's just funny because Jack would be able to predict that that's what I'm going to do. It's the right thing, I believe. And I think he also thinks it's the right thing. But it is kind of funny. Anyways, regardless, that was a little bit about the opinion side. Now, the other thing that I have is talking about how money is not a measurement of success. I've briefly spoken about this before, but as I see how money is made and understand the metric of money itself, the more I not devalue money, but the more I don't link financial success to individual success. I am someone who is looking to have a lot of money. I don't have a history. I'm relatively young. I am in the top like 1% of paid people in Australia my age. I'm not doing horribly. I've got a lot of revenue streams that I'm working on, and if they take off, that's cool. But this is not the thing that would make me successful in my eyes. The thing that makes me successful is a magnitude of things, but money actually isn't one of them. Now, it's a nice thing for the outside person to look at and believe that that person is successful because it's actually the only tangible currency that we have in our society. Now, I think actually in different countries they literally have other measurements of success that they go off. And now I might be speaking out of complete ignorance here, but I believe in India that there is some measurement. Actually, oh, last time I said that I got toasted in the comments, so I might do it again. Views, hello, come on. I'm kidding. India, I love you. Sadhguru, big ups. Hope you well. Oh, that could be risky. I don't know if Sadhguru is doing well. Ugh. Anyways, Sadhguru, hope you're well. Big friend of the pod. Ooh, big friend. Friend of the pod, I mean. Jeez. Anyways, caviar. Where was I? Currency in India. I think they've got like some other currency to where it's like a level of success. Now, I don't want to say it's the caste system because I did say that last time. I got toasted, and I was ignorant. Still am ignorant to the caste system, so I'm not saying it's bad. In fact, it's great. One of the best in the world. So yeah, big ups the Indians. Where was I? Currency. Yeah, success is not tangible. You don't know how successful someone is by looking at them, and that's why we always think if they've got a lot of money, they're successful. And I actually think that thinking about, and actually, I don't like when you say like, "What's your definition of success?" Because there is a level of objective success, and I think that when you start talking about like your truth or your success, like I don't like it. In my opinion, there's probably a little bit more validity to saying like, "What is your definition of success?" than saying, "What's your truth?" Because there is only the truth, your truth. I'm sorry for all the people who don't agree with me here. This is my truth. Shush. But there is only one level of truth, and that's the truth. So, yeah, keep it push push. Same thing with success. There is a level of objectivity of success. I would say that money is potentially relatively high in it, but there is no other like tangible measurement of success because I could say that I'm so happy, I could say that I'm so fulfilled, but it's relative to the next person. And what my level of fulfillment might be may completely outweigh the other person who I'm next to, but they may be more fulfilled in their scale because maybe their relativity is much more lean than mine. Okay, let's give an example of that because that's actually an interesting topic to discuss. Relativity is two polar ends of the scale. If I've lived a pretty crazy life and I've done extreme things my whole life, then my absolute worst pain is like if we were to look at a scale of 1 to 10, my worst pain that I feel, my 10 may feel like someone else's negative 100. But because my negative 100 is the lowest I've ever felt, and it's the same low that the 10 has felt, relativity would suggest that these are the same feeling because you don't know anything more than your lowest pain point. And it's the same for your highest joy point. And with relativity, it's the same thing for success if it is subjective, to where success is relative to what you know or how you define it. Now, as I mentioned, there is a level of objective success, but then it's like if I compare my objective success metric to the metric of someone in a different country, it's going to change drastically. The same way that if I'm in Australia and I'm trying to raise capital for my startup, it's really, really difficult for me to do so, and I put so much effort into it. And my 200,000 that I raise is equivalent to 2 million in the USA. I put in so much more effort to get my 200k in Australia, and in the USA they didn't put too much effort in to get their 2 million. Relativity would suggest that they were arguably as hard as each other, or maybe I'm thinking about that wrong. I think you get the point. But essentially, everything is relative, but there's a level of objectivity. But then, even when we try and make it objective, what is the objective definition, which is again subjective based onto where you are, your experiences, the life that you've lived, the schema, the framework, etc. All of this, it's like really, really difficult to define. And that's why I'm saying that there's probably a little bit more validity to your definition of success. Although, what happens when you define your level of success, all of a sudden you start playing a negotiation game in your mind, and you're like, oh, there's a word for it actually, and we've spoken about it on the podcast before with Jack. But it's like this little it's this critic. It's a critic in your mind. I forget what it's called. It's like the tip of my tongue. No diddy, and I really can't remember it. Chris Williamson talks about it a bit. Anyways, regardless, it's basically the thing that like when you start arguing in your mind or negotiating in your mind, cynic. Oh, I got no idea what it is. It's literally there. Anyways, Citadel. Oh, Cynic Citadel. What the? I don't sit so lost. It's gonna come in the next. No, it's gonna come right after the podcast. Anyways, the Inner Citadel. Let's actually go. Let's go because that was crazy. Live in the flesh. You're welcome. Inner Citadel. The Inner Citadel. When you're starting to think about like your definition of success, you're starting to like negotiate with yourself, and it's like, oh, okay, but then X, Y, and Z means that it's more successful because I felt like it was really difficult. But if you compare it to the next person, it's relative, and it just gets messy. Like the best way would be to ask the big man himself upstairs and say, "Tell me how successful I am," and then he'd probably say, "Your level of success is not measured by your worldly life; it's by the fruits of your labor," or something wise like that. I don't know, whatever it would be, but I feel like that would actually be the answer. Anyways, caviar. Money is not a good measurement of success. Fact. Many reasons to why. I think there's a few obvious ones. Scammers aren't successful. Again, there's a level of objectivity which money has as a value exchange, which could point at success. I actually think that how money was when it first was circulating, like the currencies of old, to where money was explicitly linked to the amount of value you could provide. I think that this is a much truer reflection of success. So if you're a farmer and the only way that you actually spend money back in the day was for really essential things like food, houses, things like that, the people who had the most money back a day probably were also on the higher success metric than most people at that time. But then, of course, as money got perverted, as the scale got more perverted, as there were different ways to make money, I guess inflation. I don't mean inflation in the typical sense. I mean like inflation of a devalued currency to where it like derives other people of their perceived wealth, etc., etc. And yeah, the sense of success fades away a little bit, and today's society is probably at its all-time high of like value exchange being the least prominent through money, which is probably why people look for things outside of money a lot of the time. So it's like if you were to get a job of 200 grand a year and you're like, oh, but I can get a job for 150, and it's just a little bit less stress, people will typically, I don't know, typically, but a lot of people might choose that job that's just a little bit less stress. Whatever it is, doesn't explicitly show a value exchange, but it's there. It's a option. It's a choice. And the big one that I haven't said is obviously OnlyFans. Like that's a very good example to where it's like, I actually there's also a level of pain, which financials also could suggest, to where it's like the harder something is to do, it could be hard in terms of difficulty to do. Like it's really really difficult for me to climb Everest, and if there was a value exchange or a currency to show me what that would be equivalent to, then that would be like really hard to do. But then there's also things that's like the repercussion of doing X, Y, and Z things. So if I was to risk my reputation, but then I was to make $10 billion afterwards, then it's like, oh well, the risk that I took was worth it. And it's the exact same thing for like doing something that might air badly in the future. And this is like something inherently risky, and I think that that's the exact same thing with like OnlyFans. It's like you're risking your entire life, any other job after that, just to make a quick buck. And it's like not to give them props, but it is inherently risky. So it's like it also makes sense why they're earning that much money. Not that it's like an acceptable value exchange, but it is a value exchange of inherent risk that that person takes on board. It's not that I agree with it at all, but it is a level of risk that someone takes for their reputation, to which means that it does make sense why. I'm just digging myself a grave here. I might just skip over that topic because the more and more I speak about it, the more and more it sounds like I'm making it acceptable, to which I'm not. I'm just saying that when you take pain and suffering on board, which they do, like there's no doubting it, as much as they may mask it, they are. And if they don't feel it now, they're just going to feel it in magnitudes later. But that's something that, in a business sense, at the very least, outside of that, which I guess you could argue is a business, at a business sense, if I'm taking on more pressure, more risk being a part of a business, then I should be compensated for that financially. The same way if I'm a police officer and I'm going into dangerous situations, again, I should be compensated for that more. Again, it's just not a typical measurement of success. But that's also why you shouldn't use someone's financial situation as a measurement of success. I've met a lot of really, really amazing people who have very little money, and then I've also met some really amazing people who have a lot of money as well. The common denominator is not the money that they have, but the character that they have. And it's the exact same thing when I meet someone who's really poor and has a horrible character, horrible attributes, and etc. But then I meet someone who's extremely wealthy and they have the same attributes or character as that really poor person. So I'd say that it's not a good thing. No, sorry, I'd say it's not a good measurement. The last topic that I have is talking about solitude. Now, if you know, actually, this whole podcast has been me in solitude this whole time, and it's been very evident the fact that I've always struggled to keep a co-host consistently. And that's no disrespect to any of them because I've been really, really close friends with every single one of them. So it's no disrespect to them, but the fact that I've kept on doing it points to I can still maintain it whilst in solitude. And I'm a big fan of solitude. I spend most of my life in solitude. Now, there's also an inherent risk of doing so, which is if you don't take action outside of that, then you're in solitude for no reason. And I think that a big step of self development is actually testing the skill set, the attributes, and the fruits of your labor that you've been working on. Oh, that's a great example, but it's going to make me sound like such an idiot. Okay, we'll do it. We'll do it for the sake of me tarnishing my reputation, quite frankly, on any social media platform. But we'll do it for the sake of just this episode alone. So please don't use this against me at a later date in court. But I am a casual consumer of casual consumer of Married at First Sight. Not by choice, by force. I get bullied into watching it with my family. It's the only time that I actually get to sit with them and do stuff. Oh, because I'm in solitude, so okay, that's why. And I will watch maths passively. Now I'm a passive consumer of anything. I will never ever, unless I'm in a movie theater which I never go to anyways. But April 15, I think, the Minecraft movie, will be definitely attending in a lovely tuxedo, a creeper mask, and a diamond pickaxe in my right hand with a wooden shield in my left. So, ladies, if you're looking for someone to go with, I'm free. Anyways, Caviar, where was I? Where was I? Maths. Oh, we're getting good at this. We're getting good at this. But where was I at maths? Oh, yeah, Ryan. I think his name's Ryan. Big ups, Ryan. Come on to the podcast. You could even be a customer, actually, because they all do podcasts afterwards. Anyways, I'm not an avid fan of maths, but basically, this is Brett, who is a self development guy. And it's like, you can take self development to such an extreme to where you have zero social skills. And I'll keep it a stack as well. It's not like my social skills are the best in the world, but I have the framework to also become much better in social situations because I've put in a lot of the work. But imagine if I was just to be doing my reflections for 12 hours a day, doing my push ups, doing X, Y, and Z for the whole duration of my life, and then you test it and you've got 0 minutes on the pitch and you've just been training your whole life just for this moment. And because you haven't had enough minutes on the pitch before, you fumble, you stumble, and you fail. And I think that this is very evident for self development because self development, in my humble opinion, can be pretty addicting because you have a lot of intrinsic reward. And this is something that's unquantifiable, so that's why you would download the Sculpted app if you are wondering where that comes into play. The Sculpted app is a multifaceted tool which helps you distinguish a successful day from a poor day, and it helps you measure the sculpting of the sedimentary rock at the capacity of the equilibrium of the equivalent side of the sediment. Waffle. But that's actually what the Sculpted app is doing. Anyways, regardless, horrible ad. One of the worst. Self development, it's very important to take action and be uncomfortable because you can get lost in the process of self development. Now, as I mentioned, in my mind, I don't want to get lost in the self development process. There's probably been moments not to where I've got lost, arguably, but also been like just situationally, whether it's because I chose to put myself in this situation or external situations. Like a good example, when I was in Germany, if I was to be social and do things outside of my comfort zone, it would have just had negative repercussions because, one, being a footballer in the area, if I was to do things that may be testing my social skills, the way that I would test it may not be acceptable. Uh, Acceptable in the footballing world. Let's say, like, going out with a bunch of friends and whatnot, which I had none of, just to give further context. Like, there's just a few things that I wouldn't have been able to do, especially because I just had to work alongside. I had to have a job alongside the contract, and it just wouldn't have worked for me to test my social skills at the time. And that's something where it's not even just social skills, it could just be anything that I've been working on. And it's not like I explicitly work on social skills through self development. It's like, what are the characteristics that help me become better? What are the things that I need to work on? What's the articulation? You probably notice that I don't say a lot. In fact, Loom says that I have a 100% speech rate, which means that I don't say for like in 100 words. I will not say Now, if we were to analyze this video, I've said it quite a lot because I just said multiple times, but I'm like, did I just say unironically then? I am I am using in quotation marks for the record, Loom. So that's something that I work on a lot. I don't like to say and that is something that I have tried to train out. It's a good example. But I don't really put it to the test unless I'm on the podcast. Now, imagine if I didn't have the podcast, then I really wouldn't be putting it to test because I'm in Solitude. But Solitude also enables me to test it with myself and train myself. But if I don't put it to the test, does it mean anything? No, because I'm just practicing with myself. Pause. Oh, I did it then! I'm less self-aware than I think. Although, to be fair, 100% basically means that for every 100 words, I should be saying one because the next 99, that would make it 100% because we're rounding up, because it'd be 0.5%, because one in 200 words equals 0.5%. Oh, rounding up. No, okay, maybe it's 1 in 300 words, I'd say Goodness me. But I do say when I have a pause. Gotta stop pausing. So, good example. But self-development without action or putting it in an uncomfortable environment where it's not in a controlled situation, you have to have a lot of confidence in doing so as well. So that's why I would say self-development, it's very important to take action on the uncomfortable side. But solitude is a good thing as well because it enables you to reflect, refine, and put it in a controlled environment. But then again, get out of the solitude at times, mix up the system because you also can get stuck in being comfortable with an uncomfortable situation. So if I'm always making myself feel uncomfortable, then all of a sudden that becomes my new homeostasis. And big ups, hope they're well. Goodness me. That becomes my new homeostasis, and all of a sudden that becomes my new normal. And when your new normal is uncomfort, it all of a sudden comes comfort. And all of a sudden, the thing that you used to find comfortable now comes uncomfortable. But that's a little bit unrelated, although kind of helps summarize that. So, anyways, that is my 3 main topics for today. I don't know if you got anything from it. I didn't, because I'm just regurgitating it. And no, I did get something from it. I like speaking to myself. I can't lie. But hopefully there was something in there. SCULPTED podcast. Do your thing. I don't know. Do what you do. Hopefully, just seeing what I do along the ride. You know, we've got the SCULPTED podcast going. We've got the SCULPTED app going. We've got Live Free going. I've got equity everywhere. Goodness me, I got my hands in many pies. Got a design studio going now. We've got the podcast studio that we're going to be running up. We've got something in the works that shan't be named yet. There's a lot of things that are exciting, and honestly, I just want to document it. I want to move to Sydney so that we can get the podcast studio looking fresh. When it's fresh as well, trust me, it's going to be fresh. But nonetheless, I need to get back into work. You can see I'm literally, my bed's there. I'm in the office. I need to get stuff done. I'm working 17-hour days at the moment. It's great, actually. I love it. I'm not going to lie, I love it. I'm just building stuff all the time. I'm a bit of a nerd. One of the biggest. Although I don't overtly come... Nah, you know what? Stuff it. That's it. That's me done. I don't need to articulate my nerdiness. I just need to show. There we go. Tech bro. Anyways, that's me done. I hope you subscribe. Many subscribes. I hope you follow. What would you follow? You could follow me on LinkedIn. I don't really post that much on LinkedIn anymore. It's just become a message factory. If you want to message me on LinkedIn. If you want to message me, don't message me on Instagram. I only message like one person on Instagram, and that's Alfia. So big ups, Alfia. We should stick to WhatsApp though, I'm not going to lie. Anyways, caviar. Follow me on Instagram, maybe. I don't know. Friggin' unfollow me if you want. Then follow SCULPTED app, follow SCULPTED podcast. I don't know. I'm not great at this part. Maybe just follow me on LinkedIn. Waffle. Don't follow me on LinkedIn. Don't do that. Okay, bye. What the frick am I meant to do now? I think, do that. Ciao.
Parado no bailão, no bailão. Ela com o popozão e o popozão no chão. O popozão no chão e o popozão no chão.